New Phase 2 Blizzard interview. Season of Discovery, World of Warcraft, countdown to Classic, guys. Let's take a look at this.
On Monday, I was fortunate enough to be able to sit down with a couple of members of the Classic team and ask them half an hour's worth of questions about Phase 2 of Season of Discovery.
Cool.
I got a lot of those questions from my podcast community, so I hope you do enjoy them and enjoy the answers. As always, you can find more of me and more of my kind of content
This guy's cool.
at Countdown to Classic. If you just search that wherever you get your podcasts, punch it into Spotify, you'll get a ridiculous amount of content all about Season of Discovery, guys.
Awesome.
It's everything you've ever hoped and dreamed for. Just chill out, vibe with my crew. We sit down and just chat about this like we're at the pub for forever. It's really good, solid content.
Cool.
I recommend it. Please do enjoy the interview.
Nice, take a look at this.
All right, so after a slight wardrobe
Tim and
malfunction,
Josh.
we're here with take two, and we're starting again with the Wrecking Crew, the Classic team, or, two members of the Classic team are here with us. We've got Josh Greenfield, you know him as a Grend. We got Tim Jones, you know him as Tim Jones. Boys, how are we?
Good.
Doing good.
That's the way. Look, you know the drill. Let's rip through this. So excited for Phase 2, guys. You guys are smashing it. You're quite aware of all the love and affection that the team is bathing in at the moment. So given how well SOD has been doing so far, first question, how quickly was the sequel greenlit after SOD's success? What are we talking here, guys? 24 hours, 48, Hollywood time? What are we thinking?
Yeah.
I don't really know how to answer that. I think everyone was very excited with how it went. Like we expected. I'm going to give you the I don't know how to answer that, so I'm going to give you a slightly different answer to a slightly different question and just say, I think we all expected it to be pretty successful, but we've definitely been blown away by how successful it's been. And whenever you hit that kind of success, it changes the way you kind of think about the future, and it might shift some plans. So can't really talk about what may have changed, if anything changed, but we're very happy with how it went.
Very good. No, I'm being a bit cheeky. That question wasn't on the list. I just wanted to get your reaction there. Look, guys, let's get into the questions that I did give you a sneak preview of. And what I did, everyone, is I reached out to the Countdown to Classic community and fielded a bunch of listener questions. So most of these aren't mine. They are from you guys, the community, and the guys are here ready to answer. I just want to say one quick thing. Streamers, if you're out there reacting to this, please just do me one really big solid. Just pause, Google, Spotify, Countdown to Classic. Throw me a little shout out for the podcast there. Let people know where they can find me, and we're all good. Okay, guys, let's get into it. First one's from CrewDef about dishonorable kills. Losing a rank from a single raid member killing a civilian appears a disproportional punishment, particularly during a dedicated PvP event like in Ashenvale. Are any revisions to the dishonorable kill system expected? I'm particularly concerned about the civilian mobs outside Gnomeregan and dishonorable kills in Elwyn during Dark Moon Fair.
Okay.
Well, it's definitely something that we are sensitive to, and we have made some changes going into Phase 2. There were some spells from runes that did not care if they hit a civilian or PvP enabled target. So things like Living Bomb, Living Flame, Explosive Shot. If you hit one of your enemies with that, they can't then run over to a civilian target and then then run over to a civilian target and then bring them into the fray. Okay. So we've made changes like that. Did you want to add anything, Josh?
Yeah, it's mostly like this is something that we're keeping a close eye on. Like dishonorable kills have always been a little contentious, but they were definitely added for a reason back in 2005. Like we don't want to get into a situation where, I don't know, the Horde just owns Red Ridge, indefinitely because they decide they want to just come take it over. It's like
I think the reason why there's civilians in the game is because, to avert people from just spawn camping civilian mobs, right? Because there needs to be some sort of a, you need to have a punishment for doing it,
There's kind of opportunities for good PvP, and then there's okay, we can't quest for a day. Because
I think it's good as there. What do dishonorable kills do? They reduce your honor that you have, your rank.
zone is just wholly owned by the other faction because they've decided to put down their stakes. And so that's something that we want to be really careful about. You know, when any kind of decision we make around dishonorable kills or changing the functionality or removing them, it's not something we want to do lightly. Just because we don't want to create situations where you can basically grief the other faction even on PvP
it's annoying,
servers
right?
where that thing is a little bit more okay. We just want to be careful about it.
All right. Next one's from Dildy. And this might be a quick answer. Has the classic team talked about adding quality of life changes, such as you guys have seen this everywhere? Instant mail between your own account, 40-yard nameplates for non-PvP mobs. You know, something like preparation and battlegrounds, clicking off weapon buffs, all the usual
I like
suspects.
instant mail, honestly, between accounts.
So
like
some of those things, I mean, the short answer is yeah, we've definitely talked about and are always talking about like what makes sense as a true quality of life addition to Classic. Some of them have unexpectedly complicated technical reasons why they exist, like the weapon in view thing has a little bit of there's a little bit of dragons there in the code that we'd have to kind of fix in order to make that a little bit easier to use and easier to click off. But it's not to say we won't ever do it, but it might not be as simple as it superficially seems. There's also a couple of things in there, like the 41-yard nameplate distance. We kind of take a little exception to calling that a quality of life change. That's actually objectively a major systemic gameplay change.
It adds a lot of different
and the thing
stuff.
that gives us pause about that is something like, you know, if you go into a cave, for example, like a multi-level cave, if you have 41-yard nameplate distance, that drastically impacts the available information to you in terms of like what's above you on the other level, what's around a corner, and one of the things that, you know, we get a lot of comments and concerns that, Season of Discovery is going to make the vanilla world too easy or less dangerous. Now, we don't think that's been the case. Like, we definitely have made adjustments to the difficulty of the outdoor world, and I don't think many people actually, having played Phase 1, really thought it was as easy as they maybe expected it to be. But that is the kind of thing that actually can make the world feel a lot easier.
I get that.
And you know, while it might be annoying in the moment if you're a mage and you can't see a nameplate of something you're shooting from 35 yards away, and you might say, "Grr, Blizzard, they should change this. This is totally," you know, it actually does have a lot of impact. And that's not to say we won't ever change it. It's just that's the kind of change that once we make it, we'll probably never be able to unmake it. So
I think I agree with this. It does change a whole lot having those long nameplates. I really do agree with that.
We have to be very, very careful and deliberate, because one of the things that, you know, we talk about a lot is that there's a lot of like, what led from 2004, 2005 WoW to, like, you know, modern World of Warcraft. There's a lot of iteration and improvement, but a lot of those changes didn't happen overnight. It was a ton of little things over time. And if we repeat every little thing, then pretty soon we're going to kind of be pretty close to where modern is in terms of like
lack of friction and
things like that. And you know, players talk a lot about wanting a classic plus, but I don't know if many of them want a modern minus. Like, you know what I mean? Like that.
Dude, I love how like aware that, you know, Josh and all these developers are, man. It's nice that they genuinely recognize these things.
Doesn't necessarily.
It's really nice.
It doesn't seem super exciting, so we got to be really careful about this. It's a really long-winded
Modern
answer.
minus.
We talk about the nameplate thing in particular a lot.
No, well said. Absolutely. This one's from Ubiquitous. Okay, here's the big one. Are you holding back some specs intentionally early on, knowing what's coming later, rather than giving those specs the world straight out of the gate and then having to nerf them? For example, Shadow Priest, Enhanced Shaman, Early Shaman, Frost Mage.
Dude, Shaman is gonna get such a big buff, man. Yes, man.
I don't think that we're purposefully trying
stuff
to
will happen though as you go,
or hold back certain classes. You know, I think some classes just haven't come into their full form without their their level 40 talents, having their entire kit of spells, and you know, runes weren't going to change how those classes felt until they had those marquee spells and abilities.
They hate Shadow Priest though. Shadow Priests are getting a massive buff in the next phase. Like, literally going to be insane. 50% reduced mana cost on all shadow spells while in shadow form. Bro, like, I think Shadow Priests are going to be quite nice.
And then there's also the element of us, you know, we want to make discoveries exciting. We want there to be an interesting discovery or adventure that players have to go on for certain runes, and we can only do so many of those.
Yeah.
You know, in an entire production cycle. So we have to figure out what runes we want to deliver.
Cyclone,
and hopefully some classes will feel more complete via talents and also have some fun runes to play along with as well.
Let me twist the wording for you, Josh. Sure. Josh, if you want to piggyback off of Tim's answer there, I'll change it to: has it been difficult developing the game in piecemeal fashion as you've done, while you know the really powerful stuff that's coming for us at 50 and 60?
Okay.
I don't think it's been more difficult. It's probably easier because we've definitely done planning around like what runes are going to come online in which phases. And as Tim was saying, we didn't say, oh, we don't want to give you this because you'd be too strong with it. A lot of it is mostly just like, well, if we want this rune to impact something that you don't get until level 44, well, it's got to go into the level 50 bracket. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
But having an idea of what we want when does help us, or what we know is coming when, what runes we know are coming online, has helped the content designers kind of be like, okay, these are the stories that I can tell later on that tie into this, or I have a cool idea for a discovery and it really works. You know, I could do it
I also just think it's more fun, like having the runes come as you go, right? Like having everything in the beginning would just feel so overwhelming and there would be nothing left up to discover, right? So I like that. Do you see Balaz Procus through Nax? I didn't know.
In the Barons, but I think it might work better.
More fun, like having things come as you go.
It's things like that. I think it helps having a plan, and we do definitely have a plan. But the plan does change. We've made adjustments and changes based on player feedback, but for the most part, we have an overarching.
That beautifully feeds into my next question. Well done. This one from Wonder saying, I'm sure player feedback has impacted or changed the runes that you've shipped. Can you provide an example of player feedback that did change your plans significantly?
I mean, the best example of that is right before we launched, we had gotten, everyone had seen the runes from BlizzCon. And we saw a lot of commentary. It wasn't really on the runes. It was on faction equality. There was a lot of commentary on like, oh, well, Alliance will have access to kings, but Horde won't. Now, being real, I don't know how many level 25 paladins would actually take Blessing of Kings in their talents. Like, I don't know many who actually would. They might if they didn't have another option, but I don't. It's not a particularly compelling choice whenever you only have 16 talent points to work with.
I'm not a big paladin guy, so I don't know about that.
We definitely recognized that, like, it's like, well, they at least have it available to them. Some paladin in the raid might take it, whereas the Horde wouldn't. And that's why we made the swap to put what was Aspect of the Lion became Heart of the Lion. We put that on, we moved that into the level 25 bracket when we didn't intend for it to be there. We intended for it to be at 40.
I think it's nice though, like they're still keeping the integrity of Shaman and Paladin in their own way, while still adding some of those buffs that they, give to the team, like Wild Strikes and like, Aspect of the Lion. I think it's a good way of doing it and still keeping Shamans and Paladins unique.
Exposed weakness, we swapped with that, and that was basically directly based on player feedback. And that's the best example, I think.
Okay.
There's been a few others I can't think of. I don't know if you.
Well, there's probably phase 2 examples that we can't really talk about, right?
Yeah.
Well, some of the ones that we have announced, like the two-handed weapon specialization for Shaman.
Too.
Those we sort of had an initial plan for how we wanted Enhancement Shaman to go, but the community wanted something in addition to that, and so we were happy to flex on our original design solutions there.
It's so sick, man.
Some of the plans, like Spirit of the Alpha, are our answer for the Horde's version of Blessing of Salvation.
Oh yeah,
people may have been asking for that, but we actually did have that planned well before launch. So
yeah, Spirit of the Alpha is a rune that basically like gives a certain target a lot more threat, so you can like give someone like a big threat boost for a minute or something like that.
But we are listening, and
so is Spirit of the Alpha one of the great examples
Reverse
that we heard you guys talking about in phase 1, where you could clearly
Didn't you say that it was useless? Yeah, well, I wouldn't personally use it, but I don't think I said it was useless. I said it's like not a really cool rune personally, but people are probably gonna use it for some stuff.
Next was you guys tearing your hair out, just going like, just wait.
No, I still like. If I play a Shaman, I probably won't use it. I can see use cases for it, but it's not a rune I'm like, oh my god, that's so hype, right?
out.
Yeah.
Basically. All right. Next one's from Manny. With the class identities of shamans and paladin, or shaman, I should say, and paladins being increasingly blurred together and core abilities given to other classes, do you guys worry at all about the deteriorating faction identity and uniqueness?
Good question.
Or do you even
Hero,
categorize it as a problem?
Good question.
I'll take a stab at this and say that personally, this is I don't know if I want to necessarily speak for the team on this one, but I think personally, I feel that the faction identity is paladins for alliance and shamans for horde in original WoW. That's the important part, and I think the design intent, I think it's a pretty easy extrapolation to look at the abilities that paladins had and the abilities that shamans had, and say that those were designed in a way that was a natural extension of their class role. Now, that said, though, there's no denying that there's an inequity in original WoW because of that.
For sure.
And so it's like, I think what we'd like to focus on is keeping the flavor of those classes in their faction, but tactically move some pieces of that kit around, just so it feels less bad if you're missing a key buff, or you don't feel like you can kind of compete with the same classes on the other faction.
I still think, though, that there still should be up and downs to like playing certain classes. Everybody shouldn't be equal. There should be like a special thing you have as a shaman, or a special thing as a paladin, and not everybody should have everything. And I think we should be careful about going into that territory where it just becomes all classes is the same. They're just all the same, you know. There's nothing different, right? There should be different. There should be like a bad thing for playing a certain class and a good thing for another class, right? That's what makes vanilla so special. I agree. I think that is some of the unique stuff. It's not really balanced, but that's good. Shamans still don't have bubble, don't worry. Shamans are gonna be amazing, man. I'm quite excited about that still. Warriors should have bad DPS. There is no world where Warrior will ever have bad DPS, man. Okay?
Because of some key buff that maybe isn't even a choice you opted into a character creation. It's just a thing that happened because your faction works the way it does, or has the buffs it has.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Next one's from Zoran. This is a juicy one. If the team's okay with runes scaling with level, why not take the same approach with baseline spells? Are you doing anything to address spell ranks at the upcoming level caps?
It might have to be a more expensive... I'm not gonna lie. What might make it more expensive, man? Okay?
Or are we going to be in a situation where baseline spells take a bit of a backseat to rune spells constantly?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly having to come up with creative solutions to
he's really careful.
Make Season of Discovery coexist in the same like development framework as Era and Hardcore. So an enormous amount of work would have to be done in order to make all of the baseline spells scale in the same way that rune spells do, and simultaneously allow for
this power creep,
all of the same spells to exist in the way that they currently do on Era. So,
dude, imagine the work having to scale everything for all the levels. That seems like that seems ridiculous, man. Just make the runes not scale with level. There is a massive difference with how good runes are right now. Like, they're just way better. But a big part of that is because, like, we're so early in the levels too, right? We're level 25, 40 soon. So you just don't have high rank skills, and they're just not that great yet. Warrior was my least PvP class in phase, but I'm going to go for it for phase 2. I mean, Warrior will always be a little bit of a struggle in PvP. That's just the vanilla life bit, but I think Warrior's going to be just fine.
You know, eventually, maybe there's some monumental path that we take to either separate the season from the Era and Hardcore framework, if that's something that
1 year smile
makes sense production wise. But yeah, I think at each phase there is going to be a few rough edges in terms of, you know, maybe your marquee spell was a few ranks back or a few levels back that you got the latest rank for. At 60, everything tends to balance out.
Yep. It's the end game, you know?
We're sort of okay with those rough edges, and if they're rough edges in the extreme, that's something that we can that we can figure out some improvements for.
Mm.
We also
good,
really
Rick.
think it's okay for the meta and the way you play your class to change every couple months, right? Like
Agreed.
that's kind of the whole point of this. And while it's like, oh well,
Dude, I know. I feel like I'm sitting here just agreeing with you, but I feel like they're really good at. I like the vanilla devs a lot in the classic team. I think they're really great. They really seem like they know what the community kind of likes and what people enjoy, and they actually seem like they're very good at explaining the reasoning behind it too. I've been a really big fan of the classic team. It's been really nice, especially Josh. Josh and Tim are amazing. Yeah, they're great. The classic devs are biz. I agree. Did you pre-sleep for lunch already? What's the plan for leveling the next few hours? Simping for no reason? Well, I think they're doing a great job. I think they're doing a fantastic job with what they've done.
Hey,
so
Guzu,
of course,
what do you think
this
of
rank of, I don't know, Mind Flay is 6 levels behind the level cap. I'm just
streaming
not going
tomorrow,
to use
of
Mind
course.
Flay. It's like, okay, maybe you just don't use Mind Flay. But it might become a mainstay. That's a bad example. Mind Flay probably won't be a huge mainstay if too many priests can't, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's a mainstay at 50, you know what I mean? And it's a little bit less. It's a filler at 40. And that, I think that's okay. And I think that actually leads to some more interesting gameplay that it's like my rotation might change every couple levels, or my optimal order of abilities or order of operations changes a little bit every phase.
No, well said. I'm laughing because I brainstormed with a few of the guys, Hunk, Ubiquitous,
Okay,
and Punchy,
please.
last night about drafting this interview for you guys. And at a certain point, we were saying we think we can script some of these answers of what they're going to say, and we nailed that one. So well done. No, it was good to hear. It was good to
High
hear.
fives all around.
Yeah. No, vanilla friction is underlined. I get it. It's all good. Look, Alenia's got the next one, guys. Quick question about the Blood Moon event. Will there be any diminishing returns on killing the same player?
Oh,
Win
for honor.
trading is a concern.
Okay,
Sure. So
and like currency and whatnot. Good question.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a concern. We have, by design, created the ability for players to self-police to an extent.
All
right?
right.
Like, people who participate in this event in raid groups will be punished. You can't effectively
How punished,
participate
though?
in the event if you're in a group of more than 5.
You can't.
So that's off the table.
Okay.
However, players will try to obviously find the most efficient way to grind
course.
out whatever currency, get grind the min-max the fun out of the feature.
Probably after this video. Trunk.
But we're hoping that the free-for-all nature of the event will allow for, groups to find people who are participating in said win trading and just kill all of them, just sort of mop the floor up with them. And if this does turn into something where it's obvious that people are finding...
Wait, so it's gonna be some sort of like a reduction to something if you're in a group. It must be. If he's saying it like that, it must be some sort of if you group up, you get a reduction to stats or something like that, right? It must be some sort of like a resurrection sickness.
Creative ways to subvert sort of
10
the
minutes,
spirit of this event, where we want people to be fighting each other like in competitive PvP. Then we'll come up with other solutions to fight.
Okay,
that
I
type
like
of
that.
behavior.
Good answer.
Yeah. I dare say that the folks who are looking to turn this into a PvE exercise or a non-PvP exercise, if those groups get rolled up on by a group that is looking to fight and is
God.
tooled up to fight, they're probably not going to have a super great time at it.
A group though.
But that might seem overly
It's gonna be
hopeful,
such a weird event, man.
And we don't want to
God.
be naive about it. We're going in with eyes wide open of the potential problems with it. But
Yeah, that is true, Forrest. There is gonna definitely be people that are just going in Discord and then okay guys, we're gonna go together now and we're gonna just kill everybody else. There 100% will be groups like that. For sure. You cannot heal each other, but they're probably gonna be like going together as groups and then going in and killing other players, right? You can't really stop people for doing that, and there will probably be a lot of people that will do that to abuse it in a way. So yeah, I just don't know. Maybe you need to tag people, or I'm not sure how the coins will be distributed. Then they'll kill each other, won't they? AOE and such. I mean, let's say you have like 5-10 hunters or mages, whatever, just running together, soloing, like single targeting people down. There's not much you can do. Or like, let's say a bunch of rogues running together and doing it, right? There will definitely be people doing that.
You know, I do also want to
It
point
depends on how the rewards are given, right?
out win trading and kill trading and stuff in PvP for rewards is actually against the rules. It's always been against the rules in WoW. So I would encourage you not to do that. And you know, just like Ashenvale, if things don't work or if things don't play out the way we hope they will, we'll just make adjustments as time goes by.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we'll be monitoring this closely and make adjustments on the fly.
Too easy. Speaking of the rules, we obviously had a bombshell dropped in regards to GDKPs. At the top of this episode, if people are hearing this on the podcast proper, you would have heard a spirited comedic skit by me in regards to the GDKP changes. But guys, I know you're going to want to answer this in a way that's just, you know, we can't go into details, we can't tell you too much and all of that. But the Pepsi challenge is to give us some kind of a meaty answer here with this question from Tariak. Are you going to stand in the way of the rise of the Peace Bloom DKP now that GDKPs have gone the way of the Dodo?
I'm just going to say that there's a lot of players out there that are looking to create systems, and they all think they're very clever.
They think he's talking mad shit.
They're not actually that clever. A horse by any other name is still a horse. You know, there's not really going to be much like get us on a technicality for this here. Like if you're doing this, we're gonna know you're doing it, and we're going to take the action we said we're going to take.
Holy shit!
So that sounds like a common sense approach.
Giga Chad.
Yeah, and it's. Somebody dropped the legal analogy on me the other day. It was like a Supreme Court justice was like, it was some case, and I can't remember exactly. He couldn't remember exactly what it was, but it's like, I don't know how to define this, but I'll know it when I see it, kind of thing.
I like that, dude. He's so cool, man.
That's kind of the approach we're going to take.
I'm not
going to draw a box and say this is the box. Be within this box, or else, because then people
they
are
did
like,
DKP without gold. How are we ever going to find these people? Oh, goodness.
Exactly.
I didn't have that.
Wasn't that something about Larry Flint and the definition of pornography? It was something like that.
That was what it was. That was what it was. Yeah.
Dude, there's so many of these. There's so many of these references I don't get, man. What Pepsi is he talking about? What is I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just like out of the loop.
Yeah, too easy. Sorry, anything more? No, we'll move on. Okay, beautiful. Nailed it. Thank you. You did well. I was expecting we can't say anything, but you did it. Oh. Hey, here's a fun one. For real, no bullshit. Give us an insider take on the Hunter headache through phase 1.
Oh, Hunters.
Go, Josh.
Okay, I'll take this one.
Sold American
I don't
stuff?
know. You know, like the thing is I think we knew going into it that hunter pets would be really strong. We wanted them to be more strong. Like hunter pets are kind of it was an interesting gameplay to kind of manage your pet and keep it alive in original WoW, but the reward for that investment was not that great, really. And so we definitely wanted to make them more powerful. And it sucks to nerf things. We don't want to nerf things. We'd rather buff things. But it was just a clear outlier. We just sort of swung a little too far. And it was something that was...
A little too far, man. It got nerfed like 6 times. Dude, Hunters were just so crazy, man. They were just so good. It was the pets, man. And the explosive shot in the beginning, I remember, man. That was so insane, too.
Difficult for us to kind of gauge internally. Like, we saw what damage numbers look like relative to each other, but it's like once you're in that group PvP setting or even a 1v1 PvP setting, it can really spiral out of control really quickly. And that was just something that I think it was just a little bit of a miss. Like, I think we could have done a little bit better.
It was kind of bad with the Hunters.
More conservative so that we could maybe buff instead of nerf.
And it also felt shit for the Hunter mains, man, because you were like really powerful, really strong, and nerf, another nerf, one more nerf, another one. It just feels shit getting your like, even if you still are performing really well, like Hunters were still doing great, but it just feels shitty getting weaker and weaker, right? When it's the opposite that's supposed to happen as you get more gear. It was deserved. I mean, yeah, obviously they were too strong, but it still feels shitty being really strong and then just getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, right? What is this? A Grand getting ready to nerf Hunters again. Shit, here we go again. Yep.
And so that's kind of just like a lesson, I guess, to take forward from that is maybe in our quest to make everyone feel strong and fun, maybe we went a little too far there.
Yeah.
And that feels
True.
bad. We don't want to create that
Good that they
situation.
admit it.
But at the same point, they're still very strong. The nerfs didn't really actually hurt them all that much. Like,
True.
they're still
Yeah.
very, very good.
I know.
But it feels really shit having your character be nerfed over and over again, even if you still are performing. It still is performing really well, right? It feels kind of shitty.
And and that's fine. We think it's okay if some classes situationally
But
are very,
the
very
nerfs are
strong.
warranted.
That kind of goes back to we want to try and make everyone feel OP in some way.
Also, as a team that doesn't normally do class changes, we're learning what our processes are.
There's
and
like no balancing.
We're
in
going to
Classic
try
they've
to
done.
become more predictable and more organized with the changes that we decide to make and when we decide to make them and how we communicate those changes. So
Too easy. Has it been an emotional roller coaster for Morgan this whole phase?
She's had opinions about hunters in particular, for
can
sure.
imagine.
Oh, God.
But
I
that's
can
good.
imagine.
It keeps us grounded. We need lots of perspectives.
Yeah, the
right.
more the better.
Next one again from Ubiquitous. Hey, you two specifically, you guys were in the crowd as the Countdown crew sat down for 5 hours the other day and broke down everything that we heard. And one of the points we touched on was the Gnomragon +2, +3 discussion in regards to the bosses. Soon after...
I don't know what that is. +2, +3? I'm not sure what that means. If it's like a harder version of it, or I'm pretty out of the loop here, actually, what he means with that. Oh, the levels of the bosses. If they're 2 levels higher or 3 levels higher.
To that, look, whether or not this is a thing, we seem to see some of the items that we might have access to from Gnomragon change a little bit. Tongue in cheek, was there any correlation between you guys hearing that discussion and those moves? But more importantly, will the bosses be +2 or +3 in
Levels
Gnomragon?
higher, okay.
+2.
Yeah.
Oh, easy.
That was always the plan, by the way. I think of some of the changes you saw, like for example, like weapon skill going from +5 to +3 on some items. That was really because when we sat down and thought about it, it's like, oh, we don't need +5 right now because the bosses are +2.
Yeah.
And the difference between +5 weapon skill and +3 weapon skill is something like 0.25% chance to hit, and I think like 9 or 10% extra reduced damage from glancing blows. It's very minimal, but at 60, when mobs and bosses are +3 levels above, that 5 weapon skill is massive.
Yeah.
And so we want to be really careful. Like we started out, some of those items maybe started out in a stronger or weaker state, and as time went by, when we do natural tuning of items, you see the results of that. Especially with the PTR, like A, some of that stuff isn't real, and B, some of that stuff you actually saw like very old versions of it, and it took a while for the hot fixes and other changes we made in more recent weeks to catch up on PTR. So that was really it. It's a lot more mundane and a lot less interesting than you think. It's mostly just you just get to see a little bit more of the natural sort of
Releases in 1 hour
process as we go through it. Through that data mining.
Too easy.
TTS,
One word,
yeah.
both of you. Which class are you most excited to see Phase
Just
2
like pause
reactions
them
roll
if
in
we
for?
watch videos.
It's not a one-word answer, but I'll keep it short. I'm excited to see how mages incorporate spells like Bale, Firebolt, and Spellfrost into
Please do.
any
Yeah,
of their
I think I'm going to
rotations,
start
whether
doing
it's
that.
Arcane, Frost, or Fire.
I don't want to say a specific class name because then everyone's just going to be like, "That's going to be the best class." I don't know. No. I'm with Tim though. I think Tim and I were talking about this earlier. That it's like it'll be interesting to see hybrid builds, and it's like, are any classes going to eschew their 31-point talent and go for some sort of 15-16 build? Like it'd be really interesting to see that. I want to see how that stuff starts.
Too easy. You didn't take the bait. Well done. Really, really quick, and then we'll get to the lightning round. If you could go back 4 months in the DeLorean and tell yourself about Phase 1 and the development work you did on it, what would you change non-Ashen Veil category?
Okay, good
I think
question.
I would have liked to had Akumai be a little more difficult.
Oh,
compared
I agree.
To
Yeah.
the rest of the instance. Have it be more challenging than...
It felt kind of shitty, like struggling a little bit against Dust to Dust Kilris, and then you went to Akumai, and it was kind of just like, oh, okay. Shit, that was a lot easier, right? I don't know. I think it should be a little bit harder, and I hope actually Nomer will be a little bit more difficult at BFD, just overall.
Kelris, perhaps.
I think
but
so.
I would say overall,
Less
I think the
than 3.
difficulty of BFD landed pretty well.
Absolutely.
I think, going
played
back to the
GDKP,
hunter thing, I
no.
think I would have probably tried to start a little bit more conservative with some of the runes. There's a couple classes I maybe would have looked at like systemic changes to just before we even started. I'm not going to name names, but you can probably figure out if you think long and hard about it, which I might be referring to. Yeah, I mean, overall, we're over the moon with how it's gone so far.
They've
I don't
done a
think
good job with
could
it
have gone
overall, I
much
think.
better. I mean,
Some mistakes
it
here
could
and
always
there,
be better,
but
right? But like, perfect isn't the enemy of good, and I think that it played out pretty well.
Too easy. All right, guys, lightning round. Last couple of minutes here. I'm going to try and squeeze everything I can out of this. Maybe we get an extra minute because of Tim's wardrobe snafu.
Oh.
Hey, will you shut higher level dungeons off in phase 2, such as Sunken Temple? Yes, no, or can't say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything
They
above
will.
Uldaman will be turned off.
Beautiful. Is there
No sulfrac, no anything like that. It's gonna be all
something
off, yeah.
notable we did not find in phase
it's good.
1?
Maybe.
Oh,
I'm not sure if
bastards.
either of us would actually know. Like, the content people probably know, but I don't think. Maybe.
All right.
Let's
Well, you can
jump
hit them up
into-
and send me a follow-up answer. Will bosses in... Oh, this is the big one. Will bosses in Gnomeregan be immune to bleeds and poisons?
Oh!
No, they won't.
Oh!
But for fantasy, there will be a slight penalty to poisons, diseases, and bleeds.
Very good.
Okay, fair enough. But okay, so deep wounds will still be in effect, and so will poisons for rogues and everything. Okay, that's cool. They have a 17% bleed resistance. Okay, if that's true, Death Toad, I think that's a good way of like kind of doing that. Yeah, that's quite all right. That's quite all right, I would say, instead of just straight up like removing it.
Nothing super significant, but we want people to be able to play the specializations and
Really
classes
good
that they
questions,
want
yeah.
and not feel overly penalized in a mechanical heavy instance.
Very good, very good.
It won't be as punishing as early BFD
What
was.
the fuck is
before
that,
we made
guys?
adjustments.
Too easy. Will backtracking for runes, such as finding runes in places we've already spent a lot of time in phase 1, be a thing?
No.
Okay.
That's good.
You may have to go back to some zones that you've
Yeah.
been to before, but primarily the adventures and discoveries that we want people to be in should be centered around the level 25 to 40 zones.
Okay. Will we see a gold sync rune again?
Golds. What?
Maybe.
Likely. Well, maybe. Probably not a gold sync rune, but we are
Oh, like the one in Ratchet where you had to go buy a bunch of, like, get a bunch of stuff or buy it or farm it or something like that. Okay.
actively talking about gold syncs, and there are some gold syncs
Yeah.
in phase 2.
Good, good.
Not necessarily rune related. though.
No, you love to hear it. That's
Okay.
good. STV mount. We'll have mounts anyway, but is that only usable in STV?
No, it's usable everywhere.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay.
Last 2 questions, guys.
That's cool.
Who on the classic team is first on your hit list for Blood Moon? And I remind you, you're
shit.
under oath.
I think we'd only be able to answer that question if magically all of us were on the same server somehow, but we all seem to accidentally roll on completely different servers.
That's fair enough.
So
All right.
I'd say Morgan, but I don't think I could take.
reward
I don't think I
count.
could take her if I found her. So,
All right. All right. Here we go. Last question. Tim, do you or the team often suggest paladin nerfs that a Grend immediately vetoes?
Oh,
I'm gonna let him answer this, but I have something to expand on. Go ahead.
never. No, we would never nerf Paladin.
Yeah, not under a Grend's iron fist with paladins.
dude, he loves the paladin, man.
If you think of any paladin nerf that has happened, I'm probably the one who suggested it.
Oh, here we
I
go.
remember paladins were freaking insane in the beginning for PvP because of that stupid like divine shield, like not divine shield, the Avenger shield, whatever. 9-second days, man. It was so crazy. Hey, what's up, Crix, man? Good luck to you too.
That's not untrue. That is
Propaganda.
Yeah.
Absolute propaganda. All right.
Jesus.
Guys, we're going to wind it up there. That's pretty much it.
Really good
I
interview,
can't thank
actually.
you
I like
enough for
this.
obviously spending time with the Countdown community the way you have. I'm not sure who your favorite Countdown caller is in Season 6 of Countdown, whether you're a hunk man or a ubiquitous kind of guy, but I'm glad that you guys have been there listening in. Thank you so much.
This
As
was
always,
really good.
This has been a blast.
What a nice interview, man. I think the questions were amazing. They were really, really great, honestly. Super good questions. A lot of stuff that I was really not worried about, but a lot of things that I was thinking about, they answered that, which is awesome. And I like that they're really concise with it. I'll link it.